a bit of resource, if that's okay, just to let everyone know. So yeah, so welcome. We're continuing with our and we'll do so going forward. We will continue with a mix of physical events, hopefully starting from next month, and some of these sessions work really well as virtual online events as well. And also in terms of we may even have some blended events, so sort of hybrid, where it's a bit mix of both. So this is very much about sort of knowledge transfer and helping our network improve their skills and knowledge. Just to set the scene, I'm delighted that Ina from Biscotti Digital will be presenting for us again, who is our sort of Canva guru, and will give you an insight into the value and the usability of the Canva application, which I'd recommend to anyone. And there'll be an opportunity at the end of the session to ask questions, but I'll let Ina take questions if she wants to as we go through, because sometimes that's easier if you need to catch something there and then. Myself and Phil keep an eye on the chat to keep an eye on any details. And sorry, Fiona, I was just checking there that everyone can hear me, which is good. Thanks for that. Some people would prefer not to hear me, but there you go. Anyway, listen, without any further ado, I will pass over to Ina to take us through this session. And please, if it sounds too simplistic, we are trying, it is an introduction, and we're trying to cover all bases. So we're trying to sort of almost assume it's a blank slate, but there'll be some really important information. And we'll tell you a little bit about the end, about if people want to learn a bit more. The next stage is a masterclass that we're running next week as well. So Ina, if I could bring you in at that point, thanks.
Hello, hi Damon, hi everyone, and welcome. I hope everyone can see my screen now. Yep. I'm no longer able to see the chat, unfortunately. So I won't know, but I'll try to. Okay.
That's all right. We'll keep an eye on the chat, Yeah.
Okay. So I am Ina. I own Biscotti Digital, which is a small digital marketing agency based in Berzin. I help local businesses tell their stories digitally in a compelling and efficient way, and specialize in creating campaigns that generate awareness, leads, and sales through strategically designed content in line with your brand's goals and target audiences. I've been doing this for a long time now. And I'll give you a few examples of my recent work. So now I use Canva to do logo design, leaflet, blog banners, printables for my clients, social media posts. I even use Canva to do my own proposals, agreements, presentations, everything. I'm quite a Canva addict at this point. Why use Canva? Because in today's world, images are just pivotal. Although content and words are really important for search engine optimization and for sharing value with your potential clients, images make for more effective communication. So people will remember more what they see than what they read. They will look and spend more time on pieces of communication that include proper images. And in the end, they boost your reputation, with 67% of customers preferring businesses to provide clear, detailed images of their products. And sometimes this is even more important when you don't have a product that can be touched when you're delivering a service or a software or other intangible type of value. And in the end, over 90% of people rate visual imagery as the most important factor influencing whether or not they will purchase an item online. So there's no doubt about it. This is where things can mean getting a new client or missing out. I'm not going to waste time on any more slides. I'm going to jump straight into Canva. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'll start with the, can you see canva.com now? So that's the web-based app. This is how I first started. And I assume that everyone here has a Canva account that you've been trying to use Canva before, or have at least looked at what's in here. Most importantly, though, the top menu here contains a few very useful things that I constantly go back to. First and foremost, all the design elements. So if you're in lack of inspiration, but you need to create some marketing, you can start here, although I don't advise you to do that. I advise you to be more strategic and start with your purpose and your goal when you're starting to create some graphics. But this is a good place to start. So they suggest here a lot of types of templates that you can pick and choose from, including printed t-shirts, custom mugs, and so on. You can move on and search for the start of your graphics with the templates menu. And again, you can just search through loads of templates for endless types of artwork that you can create. I do recommend that you spend some time on the features and the learn section of the website, because you will find a host of tutorials, anything you can think of, anything you wonder about, like how do I do this? When you feel a bit lost or you have 5 or 10 minutes, their tutorials are really good for specific types of functionality. At the bottom of the web page as well, you will discover even more resources. And I'm just going to recommend here that you go into the resources column, where you can find easy tools for font combinations, for instance. Now, there are people who study this for years. What kind of fonts work well together? And sometimes when you're a busy business owner, or you wear so many hats, this is not something that most people are comfortable with, picking from all the hundreds of fonts available what would work well together. So this is one to try. There is some theory here, but there are also ways to match. So there are pre-matched fonts, and you can simply pick and choose what would work for you. And then you don't have to spend time thinking about it or worrying whether you chose fonts that work well together. I would recommend that once you decide on a set of fonts, you consistently use them again and again, just for that continuity of branding. Another very useful tool, sorry, I'm trying to go back here. Also at the bottom of the page is the color wheel and the palette generator. Again, for that continuity of branding, for that flow, so that people find your images and your graphics constantly recognizable. It's very important that you restrict your color palette. I think one of the dangers with Canva is that everything looks so shiny and attractive, and it's very easy to start afresh every time you create a piece of artwork to communicate with your clients. But then it's very easy for that flow, that strong branding visual language to get lost. And you lose an opportunity because people will no longer recognize what comes from your brand and what comes from your competition, if that makes sense. So this is a beautiful pastel image. I'll try to give you an example. And here are a lot of preset color palettes that you can simply browse, explore color combinations, and simply decide, okay, this is for me. This is what I'm going to use moving forward, and go back to it every time you start a new graphic design. So I'll try and just click on something random. There are even more options for you to use. Oh, this is just browsing. So once you found something that's really good, you simply click on the color, you copy it, and then you go into your app, and I'll show you. I'll move into my desktop application now. I found that this is the best way to use Canva. I downloaded Canva on my computer and I have it as a separate app nowadays.
So, is that like a desktop app?
Yes.
Yeah, rather than doing it online. Okay.
You can get it for Windows, for Mac, also for your tablet or iPhone. But before you start wasting time and energy and getting frustrated, just a quick disclaimer, the app for mobile is not great. You can do some basic stuff, but it takes a lot of time, it's very fiddly. I would not recommend you use it for your, maybe only for emergencies. I haven't used it on my phone in ages just because it's so fiddly. But I do recommend you keep it on your desktop. And then when you open it, you see all your designs in chronological order. You can also create folders so that your artwork is easier to find. If there's one thing that I would critique about Canva is it's not great when it comes to storing and archiving your artwork. So I do recommend once you start a piece of artwork, you give it a name that is easily searchable. And then if you remember your system of naming things, you can simply go at the top and search for the file name or the client name or whatever it is that you use. It's really easy and very important that you stick with that. A few more items in the left-hand side menu here. Stuff that other people share with you so that you can collaborate. And this is something that you can do as well with your own artwork. And I'll show you how in a minute. The brand kit function, which I think this is some of my son has become a Canva convert as well. So some of the stuff in here is his. I'm not a big fan of Nerf, just as a disclaimer. But here you can keep all that you've defined as your branding. So your brand colors, your fonts, just so you don't have to remember every single time you start from scratch, and your logos with various options. Then there is a content planner that I don't really use, but you can, in theory, connect your social media directly into Canva. I haven't tested that, so I wouldn't know, but it might be something to explore. If you have the Pro version, you can also invite and create team members for your team so you can easily share artwork and so on. Your folders I've already shown you, and the trash, which is really not that important. But this is the first menu that you see. And usually I start with create a design just on the right-hand side here. I have found preset sizing for almost everything except for an A5 leaflet. So you can simply scroll here through the endless options depending on what you want to create. And I do recommend that you think really well about sizing and how you're going to use the artwork that you're trying to create. Because if it doesn't fit in well, it either stretches or it crops weirdly and it doesn't look professional and people will just disregard your messaging. One format that I use again and again is a square. So something that's suitable for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn works as well. So in general for digital, a square can be a good thing. But if you want to create something like an A5 leaflet, you just click on the custom size button here. And you can start putting in, I usually just Google sizes. So let's say, I think this is an A5. Now you see this is a landscape A5. If that's not what you wanted, you simply go back and put in the sizing the other way around. Now this is a bit tricky because you have to be mindful that this is measured in pixels. You simply click and you move into millimeters. Now it's a bit of a faff because it changed pixels into millimeters. You simply go back and insist that these are the sizes that you need, and then you create a new design. So here we are. Now Canva automatically recognized the sizing because although they don't have exactly A5 templates, they do have US sizing, which is kind of similar to an A5. So it already offers on the left-hand side here, loads and loads of templates that are suitable for my layout. And this is a great place to start. But I didn't want to create a leaflet today. I wanted to walk with you through social media post. So we're going to shut the custom size bit. And I'll start with an Instagram post. So really important here, as I said, to name your file so you can easily find it. The way I use, the way I work for my clients is I create, for instance, a social media template, and then I add more graphics in the same file for easy access. So I don't create another file every time I want to create another Instagram post. I simply add new pages at the bottom here. If I have too many pages, I simply delete them. Also, if you dragged and dropped one template that you liked and you want to reuse for a similar type of post, you can simply duplicate. But I'm not going to work with this. Sorry, just trying to clear my selection here. So we're going to start with a blank Canva.
So this would, Dina, just to jump in, this would be the same whatever format you were working in. So you could sort of scroll through and find a nice template to start with and replace all the elements in that if you wanted. And I would recommend that for beginners, you know, because there's a lot of sort of graphic designers have created these. So, you know, don't try and become a graphic designer. Use other people's expertise to create your content. So you can use any of these and replace any of that content, images or text as required. Is that right?
Absolutely. So you simply scroll on the left-hand side here. You can see some of the themes. So you can simply search weddings, and then they will suggest something that's appropriate for the theme that you need. Some of them are topical or about COVID. What I would suggest is that you start one of these social media files and start creating templates that have a similar look and feel, but they're not exactly the same one because obviously people get bored. So there is a fine balance between something that's new and fresh all the time and something that also speaks your brand values and your visual language. So what I usually do, if I have a specific theme, I will go through templates and pick and choose things that I feel look kind of samey, and can be in the same vein without being too repetitive. So we can look here in the wedding section, for instance. I really like this one. It's always good to have a template with a lot of text, but please be mindful to adapt the size of your text.
And you just drag those across, do you, or do you just click on them to
your documents? Yes. So I add a page, whatever it is that I feel would work, I simply drag and drop onto my blank page. Of course, because these all look a bit different, also because they use different color palettes. And this is something that you need to work on. So once you've chosen, let's say, how many do we have here? 4 templates that you feel might work well for you, depending on the type of content that you usually create. Then you look at, okay, how can these become my own? How can these reflect my branding? And one of the first things we look at are colors. So just on the left-hand side in the corner, depending on what you've selected, there is a color square.
Sorry, can I just jump in? I was going to answer it in the chat, but could you just quickly cover off the templates, and are they free to use, and just in terms of what the difference is with Pro and the free version?
Right, so going back at templates, you can see here, I pay for the Pro version, and you can clearly see the ones that are available only in Pro and the ones that are free. There is plenty to work with if you start with a free Canva version. There are lots of things to do. Now, I haven't used the free Canva version in quite a while, but there are plenty of templates, as you can see, in each category. So it's just a matter of you browsing and seeing what's available there. I find Canva Pro really valuable when it comes to other elements for your design, for instance, stock photography, which is in the second button here on the left-hand side. So they've changed the menu a bit, and now all the assets are kind of in one category, which is called elements. But you can look here for anything from, for instance, Facebook icons. You can filter your search. So maybe you just want photos, or you just want graphics, and then you can have icons of Facebook. If you want to add that to your design, again, most of these are Pro, some of them are free. The difference between the Pro ones and the free ones is generally with the Pro one, you can change the color. And this is something that I sometimes do to reflect, again, my clients' branding colors. So I would change the Facebook icon with the correct color for my client's logo, for instance, or something that complements that well, so that it looks like it really belongs to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and those elements are pretty much used exactly the same as a template, just drag and drop them into your design.
Absolutely. This is why I love Canva so much. Everything is just a simple drag and drop, and then you click on the round dots around your selected object, and with your mouse simply increase or decrease the size. And Canva is very good at keeping a proportional size to your object. Oh, sorry, I picked something else. And also, but let me stick with the elements here on the left-hand side, and then we'll move into aligning objects and things like that. So other things you can find in the elements section are videos. And again, you can simply look for food videos. So just type whatever it is that you need. Some of them will be graphics. You simply go on the video button, and then you get actual footage of food. You can also add audio. So everything that's here, it's available, and you are free to use for your own purposes. But other useful elements that you can find here that I use a lot are lines and shape, for instance. And one of the things I do a lot is it's the easiest way to add a filter without actually going and editing photography, because editing photography is quite, you need to be quite advanced. So the way I do it is, if I want an image to be darker so it offers contrast with my font, I add one of these boxes. I change the color to black. Then I go at the top menu here on the button called transparency and simply change the transparency to whatever it is that I want to achieve. So this is too light, I'd say. But if we move into 35%, and then you have a text overlay, all of a sudden the contrast is much better. If you remove that, you can see how the 30% gets completely lost in the background. But with that, all of a sudden you have the beautiful flowers on the background and the contrasting text as well.
So we'll be sorry, just to jump in, we'll be covering some of these sort of more advanced functions in the masterclass next week, which we'll tell you about later as well.
Yes. Another thing you can do here, instead of having a photo, you can add a video in your template, and I'll just drag and drop. Sorry, I didn't want me to do that. So if you want to use a video, you can simply click on it and it just shows up in the middle of your design. Or if you want to drag it into a specific spot, you simply drag and drop it there. Now this selection, obviously the video is rectangular, our selection is square. If you double click on it, you can slide it from one side to the other, whatever suits you. Or again, you double click and drag the corners if you want to really zoom in and have just a small portion of the video, or the same works with images as well.
I just put in the chat again, probably something we'll cover a bit more of next week, but you can upload your own videos if you have them for your own business, and logos and images and what have you. But again, with this just being a basic introduction, we can only cover so much. But yeah, we'll cover that in the masterclass next week.
Another very useful element here are the grids. I absolutely love the grid. So when you have a few pictures that are useful for your, like a before and after, for instance, it's really, really hard to drag and drop the photos that they split in the screen exactly into two. While if you use one of these grids, you simply drag and drop it, and then the screen is already split into perfect halves. You can control the spacing that you see here in the middle. You see we have this red color underneath. You can go here at the top and control the grid spacing so that the images are further apart or even stick together. Of course, I would probably be bothered by this red color underneath, so I would just change it into white. You can adjust the grid to really maybe use just half of your graphic, and then it would, or 2/3 about here, so that you have some space for your logo and a brief message underneath. And then you can either, as Damon mentioned, drag and drop your own photos that you upload here with the upload media button. You can upload images, videos, or audio. It's really super simple. You can either use the upload media or simply drag and drop your stuff here. I'm sorry, this is a good example. So this is the building, a historic building that was, and the new building that is today. Now looking at them, this might not be an appropriate format. Perhaps A landscape grid might work better because there's not enough of the building here to appreciate what it is. And that's very simple to change. You simply go back into Elements, delete your vertical grid and move to a landscape one. You can create all sorts of fancy and, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, just how did you get to the grids in the first place from the elements?
So all the elements are here. You simply scroll down there.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So you have lines and shapes, graphics, photos, videos, audio, and then charts, frames, and grids. The grids can be really playful also because you don't necessarily need to add photos in each of the grids. For instance, let's say we're going to keep this upper square for logo and messaging. So you can simply control the color of it when you've selected it first, and then you go in the upper corner here and choose a color for it. And then you can simply overlay with text. And text is in a separate category here on the left-hand side. As I mentioned, you can simply pick and choose something that's pre-designed and simply drag and drop, and then adjust to your space. But if you work with one specific brand, then you might want to control your own font. So the way you do that, you simply double click on it or just go and select it like you would do in Word. And then you have all these fonts here. You can upload your own fonts just at the bottom of the page here. If you have fonts from Google or somewhere else, you can simply upload them and use them in Canva. Or you can make a note in your brand kit of what your specific fonts are, and just remind yourself of the rules. But let's say I have a combination of a cursive font, which is something that looks handwritten. Obviously, this looks terrible because you can't have a cursive font in. Here we go. So we changed the, how do you call that, Damon? Caps lock. We remove the caps lock with a small button here that displays clearly the uppercase and the lowercase. If you click on it, everything becomes uppercase. You click on that again, it becomes lowercase.
Just to check, are there some, I might be misremembering this, that are maybe only in one case? Or have I misremembered that?
Sorry, the fonts.
Just yes, I've got a feeling I had one that I wanted to change to lowercase, but only had an uppercase version. Yeah. So occasionally come across that.
Yeah, sometimes that is the case. Some fonts only have uppercase. But once you've chosen a couple of fonts, I do recommend that you look at their flexibility and the ways that they can be used.
And Dan's asking as well just about the fonts being, are they license free?
Yeah, so whatever it is, I think the free version of Canva offers you a more reduced number of fonts compared to the Pro. Again, I think you can see if we look at, oh, there you go. So if you look at the list here, some of them have a crown watermark. Those are available only in Pro. But there are plenty of options for the free version as well. And as I said, you only need 2-3 fonts tops that you continuously work with. Otherwise, your designs just look so different from one from the other that they become unrecognizable. So it's very easy. You simply select your box, change the font, change the sizing in the next box here. Again, I remind you, because most people look at social media from their phones, you have to be mindful. 12, for instance, is way too small for for a graphic for Instagram or Facebook or any other social media. Depends on the font, so I can't really give you sizes that work across the board, but over 40 is definitely your go-to, and then you can simply see. So less is more when it comes to text in graphic design. Just choose your one important message and make it pop in terms of color. So don't use a color that blends with the background, because obviously the text disappears and people are strapped for when it comes to their attention span, and they're not going to struggle to read everything you put in there. This is already a bit too small again. So you would have an 8-point or 10-point text on a leaflet, but for social media, it's way too small.
Again, if I can jump in, that's why some of the templates are really good, because more often than not, they're set at a really good size.
Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. So be mindful of that. Also, see what I've done here is completely random and not something that I would normally do. I am quite a control freak when it comes to font size, because proportion plays a big role when it comes to looking at something and finding it satisfying. I tend to use multiples of 8 so that the text is in proportion. When I have a headline and a subhead and a text, everything is multiples of 8. So the smallest text here would be maybe 16. And then the bigger would be 42 or 60. What is it? 64. And then I would choose something in between. I wouldn't choose clashing colors, but go for something that looks a bit more gentle and looks put together. So there is a bit of time you need to spend here with your fonts, and you can also choose just how far apart your letters are. So here at the top, there's this button with an up and down arrow next to it, and here you decide letter spacing and line spacing, so the distance between lines. This is a great one because sometimes you can create a block text which looks visually pleasing. I'm not sure if it's exactly easy to read, but it's very easy to simply, see both of my lines are moving. I don't want to do that. I just want to select the lower line and try to bring it. See, it doesn't want to do that. It's just, sometimes Canva is sticky. So if you want to do that, you simply create more than one boxes of text, and you can control them separately. You control the fonts, the sizing, the color. They're easier. Does that make sense? They're easier to control.
Yeah, that's good. And basically, just to reiterate, you can click on any of this text. Obviously, you've kept the, you've shown how it can change. So you can literally change any element of any of the templates for your own purposes. Again, I would say if anyone's a complete beginner, using something that's already been done by a graphic designer in one of the templates is definitely the best way to start with these things. And like you've seen there with Ina, you can delete any sort of excess text that you don't want as well. So it's very, very, very straightforward. I'm aware that we're down sort of 1:10 at the moment, so I think sort of 5 or 10 minutes more on the basics. Ina,
okay. A couple of things I want to mention here. As you can see, these boxes are linked to one another. They move together, which can be useful or not, depending on what you're trying to do. So you can, and this is a very important feature, you can group or ungroup elements. Once they are ungrouped, you can control them separately. It's important to ungroup and make sure that everything looks exactly the way you look, and one element doesn't impact on the other. And then you simply select all your elements back. You go back here and group them again once you are happy with where they are. You can even use the little lock here on the right hand side and lock them in place so that you don't move something by accident, which can happen and be frustrating, especially when you spend a lot of time making sure that the distance between elements is exactly right. A couple of more useful things here. You can animate. So even if, let's say, you have a couple of photos in your design, but you want to create something that has a bit of movement. Once you have all the, obviously this makes no sense. You have Lego, children playing with Lego and a message regarding graphic design. But once all your elements in place, you use this animate button here on the upper left-hand side, and you can add a bit of movement. Some of these, again, are free. Some of the options are only available in the Pro version. I wouldn't say that the animations in the Pro version are any better than the other ones. Just pick a couple and kind of playfully switch between the two of them. Another thing you can control with once you've animated is the length of time that you want the animation to run for. Sometimes 5 seconds sounds like not so much, but things can drag on, and people spend like half a second looking at your stuff. So you can go even lower than that. And once you're happy with your design, you simply click download. And here you have loads of options. Obviously, we've created an animation, so we would like to download it as an MP4 video. You can pick and choose the pages that will constitute your final graphic. So if you have an MP4 video, you can create more than one slide, but you can also opt for downloading just one slide and simply download. You can also opt to download your design as a PNG, a JPEG, a PDF, which is very, very useful for presentations and proposals and that sort of thing, or for items that need to go to print, or you can create short GIFs. Also really interesting and very useful is the share button, again, at the top of the page. You can share a link to edit. You can share a link to use as template, or you can share a link to watch. And the difference is when you share a link to edit, you have to be mindful that whoever has that link will be able to create final changes to your original file. So maybe it's better to use a link to use as template, so then the person you're sharing it with can basically create another file that's exactly similar to the original, but doesn't impact your original work, just in case you're worried that you might lose something important. So
just to clarify, that would be for them to open in their own Canva account.
Of course, everybody would need to have a Canva account to be able to see what's been shared. And the one to watch it just means you can't edit it, you can't do anything to it. You can just look at a piece of artwork and maybe offer critique in a different way. You copy it to your desktop, and then you paste it into emails, and it's a very useful collaboration tool that I use with my clients all the time. So we can kind of change while we're working without wasting too much time. I think these are the most important bits that I wanted to cover, but please do ask me questions. I know that there's loads to Canva that I haven't covered yet. And of course, please do register for the masterclass where we would create artwork for print, artwork for digital, as well as we'll cover animation and video. So we'll create separate artwork files for each of these, and I'll be giving advanced tips and tricks for you to create beautiful artwork every time.
Great, that's brilliant. before we sort of go to questions, a couple of things. Would you maybe just have a look? Sorry, you might need to share your screen again. Would you just show us the? I can't remember if you showed us the alignment tool. I think you mentioned it, but just I know it's a really good thing. And secondly, just in terms of what people do with the finished artwork to then download it and go and use it elsewhere.
Right. So in terms of alignment, are you talking about text alignment or?
No, just the wee lines that come up that are really useful for making sure things are centralized or aligned, or the automatic thing that pops up.
So it's just part of our human eye. We seek balance and harmony when we look at something. So anything that's there are specific rules to artwork, of course, but anything that's out of balance, our eyes see as displeasing and just looks away. The way to align your elements here is using these pink lines that appear on your graphic when you've selected an object and you're moving it about. So you see here, I aimed for the exact middle of this frame, but you might want to opt for the lower half and then add an image at the top, just to make it more interesting or to kind of support your message. One of the things that I struggle with the most with Canva templates is that they don't always allow for your branding. So I'll give you an example. You can find really beautiful templates, but they don't allow space for that valuable logo. And even if it's watermarked like here, like I kind of faded it a bit into the background, I still like to add that small visual ping, because if people start sharing your original artwork, then it can get lost if it doesn't have your logo on it, and nobody will know where it came from or who created it, and that's a missed opportunity for you. So I try to always make space for a logo somewhere, and you might need to work a bit hard with some of the templates. So when you pick templates, be mindful of that. Think, where will my logo go? And first and foremost. And once you've aligned that, as you see here, when you kind of drag images, they start aligning to different elements in your design. So you might want to go for the precise center, or you might want to go for the side. Here. Sometimes the mouse, when you click on an element and you move it from side to side, the mouse jumps a bit more. So you can simply use your arrows to make like really millimetric movements up and down until you find that precise spot where you want your element to be in. Does that answer your question?
Perfect. Yeah, no, it's just such a useful tool. And then finally, just to show people how they would then go and use the images and download files, I guess.
So this, for instance, is a quick video, just an eye-catching video. Puppies are always great. Once you're happy with your design, if it's a video, it simply suggests, okay, this needs to be downloaded as an MP4 video. So upper right corner, click download, and then pick and choose. PNG is a high quality image, so stuff that you use for Instagram, that's highly. JPEG, I would maybe use on a website just because it's a smaller type of file. It's a bit less quality, but it will upload more easily on client side. PDF standard is a type of file I use when I exchange files with my clients. So let's say I work on a leaflet or something. A PDF standard is smaller file size, so I can easily send it via email. They can come back to me and say, can you change this, switch that, blah, blah, etc. Once we have a final version of a file in place, I will download it as a PDF print. And here it's interesting that you can add crop marks and bleed, which is something that the printer usually asks for. And then you have that high quality 300 dpi file you need for print. SVG, I think this is something that is compatible with other editing softwares like Photoshop maybe, and some other, I don't really use that at all. MP4 and GIFs, which are short clips, no sounds, just for fun stuff, if that's appropriate for your brand. And then you click download and it usually just goes on in your downloads file or on your desktop. And then that's your file. You can simply upload it to your social media or email it or whatever it is that you need to do with it.
Great. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Thank you so much, Ian. I think we've covered quite a lot in that amount of time. Just as I said, giving a wee insight into the basics, and we'll share the masterclass information that will give a bit more the next level for people wanting to take it forward. Before I open it up for questions, you can also, I think this is assuming almost like you don't really have a brand. Some people may have a brand and colors, so you can bring your own colors in, and we'll probably cover more of that in the masterclass.
Yeah.
But you might already have a palette, a color palette that you want to use, and fonts, etc. And we touched on the fact that you can upload and you can create your own color palette within Canva, so your own brand sort of thing. But this is very much about empowering people to be able to use their brand going forward without having to go to a designer every 2 seconds to get every small thing. So that's it. If you want to put your hand up virtually, or I can probably see anyone who's got any up.